Do 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 do, booba doo doo, dooba doo doo, dooba doo doo, dooba doo doo. But okay. Welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today's episode, we've got some new Superpowers toys to add to the collection. I've got a report from the Flea Market, all kinds of goofy stuff that I saw there. I have some new toys to show off from Super Impulse, and I hope you guys are here for the full ride. So we're going to start by talking about two new vehicles from the McFarlane's Superpower toy line. This is a toy line that is inspired by the old Kenner toy line, and they have packaging that's very reminiscent. I did a mini episode on this line when it first came out, actually during the hiatus period, or when we were transferring from the first version of Pegwarmers into sort of the current show, when I took over editing the show. But I took a look at that point at the Batwing and the Supermobile, as well as some of the figures that were out now. And today I've got the Batmobile from this line and the Invisible Jet. Isn't the Invisible Jet incredible? Just kidding. I do love these blue and yellow packages. The original Superpowers Batmobile is a pretty iconic toy. It took a lot of its inspiration from the 66 Batmobile, but was blue. And this one is similar. I mean, it has the same kind of shade of blue and the orange windshield, but I feel like this has some inspiration in some earlier as well as 90s Batmobiles, which is kind of fun. So it does come with two pieces you have to pop on. There are two fins. Alright, and that kind of completes the look. There is a new Superpowers Batman figure out that has the black shading on his forehead, similar to a lot of that, pre-1989 movie Batman artwork. And I really want to find that figure. There's a steering wheel inside shaped like the bat symbol, which is very reminiscent of the original one. There are some stickers in here to give it sort of windshield details. The back spoiler area here, if you lift it up, reveals the turbine engines kind of pop up, which is a fun little feature. They flip down and lock into place. So when you want to go fast... I had to play around with it for just a second to figure it out. I could tell this front bumper was a battering ram. You push down on the bat head here, and that activates that, which is kind of similar. A lot of the vehicles from that first wave had features that were activated by pushing down on the bat symbol or the Superman symbol. And that battering ram is very similar to the original vehicle having a battering ram. The first version of the Batmobile had a battering ram, it had pop-up headlights, and it had a capture claw on the back, which this one does not. It has the jet engines. It's got space for two action figures inside, so you can have Batman and Robin tool around in there. This is a pretty fun way to share a vintage-feeling Batmobile with your kids, or bolster your collection if you want Batman to have more than one Batmobile, or if you don't want to spend the money on the vintage one, you have sort of a fun homage that isn't exactly the same as the original Superpowers vehicle. The Invisible Jet. Whoops, there's the front of the box. The back of the box does show it sort of in a clear plastic. It almost looks kind of pinkish on the back of the box, so it'll be interesting to see it out of the package. Wonder Woman's Jet. Sort of a line art there. I did find these two vehicles at my local Walmart a few weeks ago. So I have the main body of the Invisible Jet out of the package here. It looks kind of like a submarine. The Wonder Woman logo on the front does activate that canopy. And I can also see that there is a claw here on the bottom that can be lowered. I like that they used yellow cord. It looks like the lasso of truth here is what's being used. The claw is ratcheted, so you can clamp that around a bad guy and it should hold on pretty well. And I'm just trying to figure out how to trigger it to wind back up. I wonder if it's activated by... Oh, there we go. I didn't have it finished being put together, so when I put the rear fin on, the stabilizer activates that winch. And then there's also these wings that need to be clipped on. Well, that's pretty cool. There's no landing gear for it, so it has to just land on that claw. So good luck to the bad guys if you capture somebody, or you have to drop them from mid-air before you land. But this is pretty fun. I do like that Wonder Woman is getting a little bit of recognition, getting her own vehicle. It is pretty tiny, but the Batwing from this line was pretty small also. Last week's episode, I talked about the Beavis and Butthead figures from Super Impulse's 3.5 line, which is their 3 3/4 inch action figure line. Each figure is that height, but they don't necessarily scale with each other, which is kind of interesting because, boom, here's the South Park figure from the 3.75 line. They were kind enough to send me Kyle and Cartman. These figures do have images on the back to make a backdrop, which is similar to the Beavis and Butthead figures, and I know their Star Trek figures have a background as well. That's just kind of part of the whole gimmick with this line. Trying not to tear the backdrop here. These guys are pretty massive. Cartman's head can turn side to side, so he does have minimal articulation. Oh, the arms move too. So you can pivot his arms forward and back just a little bit. And he is dressed in his dinosaur pajamas. Screw you guys, I'm going to bed. And then I've got Kyle here. Of course, he still has his hat on, just like Cartman, but he's also wearing pajamas. Each figure does come with a display stand that you can drop the cardboard backdrop into and then peg the figures on. These display bases are much larger on these figures than the ones that came with Beavis and Butthead because the size of the figure is so much bigger. Same deal with Kyle here. He can pivot his head and his arms can move up and down. He's still sort of always in a kind of dancing pose or a questioning pose. And he has Terrence and Phillip pajamas on. Perfect. Alright. So this weekend, I hung out with my friends Dave and Ray. These guys are old timers I've mentioned before. They always go to the flea market looking for tools. I go with them. I look for tools as well as toys. And I snapped a bunch of pics of random stuff I saw this week. And so our first image here is a custom red and black Ninja Turtle. It's pretty cool looking. I don't know whether it's based on anything real, but it is actually a wacky action Michelangelo figure who's been painted up here. Another early find I spotted was the Shadows of the Empire Outrider. This is the almost Millennium Falcon, not quite Millennium Falcon created for the Shadows of the Empire era of Star Wars, where they were creating new characters like Dash Rendar to kind of fill in and give us some new heroes to play with that wouldn't mess with the canon that was Star Wars. I spotted the Play School Megazord. So interesting that when Hasbro made these figures, they chose the Wild Force Megazord. It was a pretty cool toy. It was on shelves kind of right after the Imaginext Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Megazord playset was available. They were similar scale, but not quite the same. Just kind of interesting route to go with. It wasn't the current season at that time, and it doesn't seem to be the most popular season. Not that people dislike it, but like SPD and a few of the other ones kind of come up as like the grail seasons, and so I just always thought this was an interesting toy. Oh, this one vendor had these old napkins, like vintage napkins, these goofy napkins, and these Halloween napkins, and it totally unlocked a memory for me. We had a die-cut, decoration you'd tape up of this black cat wearing a witch's hat. So these napkins must have been for the same set of, Halloween party decorations. Now here's something you don't see every day. The Lost World Jungle Camp Figure Maker Set. So this comes with some sort of modeling compound and molds, and you make dinosaurs and human characters. It looks like you can paint them up, and then you make a little scene with it. There's always been a lot of goofy craft items, like the paint by numbers or paint the ceramic figurines kind of stuff. I didn't pick it up and read the back, so I don't know if it was like a air dry or a oven bake kind of clay or exactly what you were doing here to make the figures. I stumbled upon this box of bendy superheroes, and I just gotta say that this Superman's cape is not clothy enough. It feels like cheesecloth. Did anybody collect these bendy superheroes? They were a thing, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. You'd see them like at electronics stores, and little novelty places would have these bendy superheroes, and they make me think of the bendy Star Wars guys we had in the early 90s, right before the Star Wars boom happened. One of the vendors at the flea market had the Force Awakens Millennium Falcon. This was a fairly large Millennium Falcon that had a Nerf gun that would pop up out of the top to shoot in place of the turret. And this one's clearly missing like the cockpit and the figures that originally came with. And they were asking $95. This seemed bonkers to me. I don't know whether they just thought because it's Star Wars it's worth something, or if I just haven't kept my eye on eBay, because I just don't really have interest in the sequel Star Wars toys. I bought most of them when they first came out, except for this Falcon. I didn't really buy any of the massive vehicles when they came out, but I really haven't looked at any of them since. It was just sort of the excitement of a new Star Wars movie and gotta get the toys, and then when they stopped producing toys for the new movies, I just stopped caring about those Star Wars action figures completely. Here's another oddity. This is a Captain Jack Sparrow action figure, and I think I'm supposed to believe that this was signed by Johnny Depp. Maybe it was, but seems like a collectible show, or maybe even like a store, would be a better way to try and sell autographed merchandise than just straight up at the flea market. But, good luck to this chap. I don't know what he was asking for, the autographed figure. I stumbled upon Ninja Wolverine. This is one of the larger scale Toy Biz figures. They were always trying to find like little variants they could make reusing these figures. So, like there was a Rogue and Mystique, and I think Polaris maybe, all made from the same body in this scale. And they had the Wolverine body, so let's repaint it and make a Ninja Wolverine. And I think they did a Battle Damage Wolverine, and maybe Silver Surfer and Spider-Man might have been the same mold. I don't know. Some goofy stuff, but I snapped a quick picture of that. Thought it was fun to share. I liked when they started getting into the soft goods to try and spice these guys up a little bit. Ooh, Big Rubber Wrestlers. The LJN Wrestlers. There's actually quite a few of these here. I had Hulk Hogan as a kid. I'm kind of tempted to get him again. I'm not really a huge wrestling collector. I do have Macho Man Randy Savage and Rowdy Roddy Piper from this line. And Hulk Hogan was the one I had as a kid, so every once in a while when I see him, I get slightly tempted, but I did not pick him up. I had a bunch of these as a kid used, like I picked them up at flea markets as a kid, but Hulk Hogan was the one I had that was like pristine until I bashed him against Junkyard Dog or whoever, and they swapped paint. Stumbled on Terry from Pee-wee's Playhouse. Always fun to see those figures carded. Somebody had the T-700 and the T-600 from Terminator Salvation. There was a toy line that kind of hit stores and blipped out of here. I like that they call out that the one figure has light piping to make his eyes glow. Always a cool feature. I think more toy lines should take advantage of light piping. And the last thing I saw at the flea market that I didn't buy was a bootleg Michelangelo in a pile with some Remco-ish wrestling barbarian type figures. I was very tempted to ask how much he was, but I figured he's not that interesting. A lot of those bootleg toys, to be honest, are funnier and cooler in their goofy bootleg packaging. Once they're loose, they're just really junky toys. So I did pass on it. The one thing I did buy at the flea market, I picked up a G.I. Joe General Hawk cake pan. I asked how much the cake pan was. The gentleman told me it was a military cake pan, and I was like, yeah, that's accurate. And he wanted $3 for it, so I couldn't help but pick it up. I actually do have this cake pan already, but I couldn't leave it there, and I plan to kind of clean it up, and maybe I'll, help it get to somebody else's collection at a toy show or something that I vend at in the future. I got 2 more items here to show off from my friends at Super Impulse. These are 2 of their classic, like Christmas present toys in miniature form. We have a Rubik's Cube and we have the Rock'em Sock'em robots. I can't even imagine trying to solve a miniature Rubik's Cube. I'm going to have to get my buddy Greg to try and solve this at some point because he's pretty good at the Rubik's Cube. And the Rock'em Sock'em robots, as kind of like individual action figures, is kind of fun. They're not in a little arena or a little rink like the original set is. They did show off a He-Man and Skeletor version of this at New York Toy Fair, which I think is a really fun idea. It would be cool if they could do this with a bunch of their licensed properties, swap out the robots for, characters that are mortal enemies. I think that's a pretty fun thing to do, and, thanks again to Super Impulse for sending over some of these review samples that I've been checking out on various episodes. These things make great stocking stuffers, little fun novelty gifts for people, and you can find all their stuff on Amazon. So this week in America, we celebrate Veterans Day. We take that opportunity to thank all of our current and past service men and women. My grandfather was in the Marines. My college roommate was in the Army. My brother-in-law is a retired Marine. So I want to thank them and everyone that watches these videos that has served our country. What you have done to protect our freedoms is amazing to me, and I can't possibly repay that debt to you guys. In the comments down below, let me know what I should have scooped up at the flea market. What's your favorite thing that I spotted but didn't buy? Thank you so much for watching these videos. Do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so. If you want to support the channel further by joining us on Patreon, that would also be amazing. Totally optional. And thanks for hanging on the peg with me.